You've seen the incredible photos online, the ones that looks like straight out of a movie, all coming from a Fujifilm camera. But here is the truth that nobody really talks about, because most Fujifilm recipes aren't as different as you might think, and straight out of camera isn't the magic bullet that it has been made out to be. Lately I've been testing a ton of different Fujifilm recipes, and while they are a blast to use, there is something that you need to know before you dive in to the Fujifilm recipe universe. Let's get started with the video. So before we get on to the nitty-gritty, hello, my name is Johannes, if you haven't been around this channel, and I do a lot of street photography and tips on how to improve as a beginner photographer. And along the way, I also share a little bit of my work, both with Sony cameras, Fuji, and also with the Ricoh GRX3. But today we're going to talk about the Fujifilm recipes and why they are so appealing to many photographers out there. So let's talk about the magic with these recipes, because they can give you a classic vintage look without the click of a mouse button. And as a creator, this can be incredibly freeing, that you don't need to spend hours in front of your computer tweaking sliders and adjusting colors to try to get a look that you like on your photos. And this means that you can focus entirely on the moment, the light, the composition, trying to get the perfect frame in the moment when you're out taking the photo, and still knowing that when you get home you have a vibe baked into the photos. It makes the entire process of taking photos more spontaneous and intuitive, which also is what makes it fun to pick a recipe, go out and shoot and see how it unfolds. In fact, this was also a huge reason why I personally decided to buy into Fujifilm to have along my Sony system that I use professionally. So every single recipe out there is built upon one of Fujifilm's core simulations of their classic film stock, like classic Chrome, Astia or Provia. And this is a really powerful foundation to get a distinct look for your JPEG files that you can share online. But here what is wild, that the more recipes you try, the more you notice that the difference aren't really that big. So you'll be scrolling endlessly to find a new recipe to use until you realize that they are only tiny tweaks from the recipes that you're already using. Even across different simulations, the differences sometimes can be so subtle that they're almost not noticeable. And a lot of this is due to that many of the recipes that you find online are really just slightly changes to the white balance. They might change this to give the recipe or the photos coming out of it a more warmer or cooler tone, which can help to create a specific vibe. But this is also a very manual and subjective choice. And you will find that a recipe that looks really great in sunny conditions look totally garbage if the light has changed just a little bit, making the recipe useless if it is more shady or you are inside, or if it is golden hour. But of course, golden hour will help a lot in many situations, no matter what recipe or not recipe you use. So you will find a recipe that looks great in bright sunlight will fall apart in shade or in moody conditions, or even if you're just inside. So the whole straight out of camera movement is really great, I think, but it can also set you up with false expectations. Because the truth is that most photos, also the great ones, can always need a little slight tweak in post-processing. Here is a perfect example. This is a JPEG from my camera, and here it is again after just a quick touch-up in Lightroom. But this is not about rescuing a bad photo. It is about taking an already good photo to the next level, I think. And this is where you can see the Fujifilm recipes as a good foundation to build on, not a final wall to stop at. So beyond the straight out of camera myth, I think there are a few limitations that you need to be aware of. And we already touched a bit upon this, but one recipe that might look really great for landscapes do not necessarily work for cityscapes, or street photography, or portraits. So you often have to switch recipes to the right situation, which can be quite a hassle. And another thing, of course, is to remember that JPEGs aren't as strong or data contained as RAW files. A RAW has far more dynamic range and contains more information about the colors and the lighting, which in the end will give you more flexibility to adjust the image if you need to. And this extra data means that you have a better chance at recovering shadows or highlights, and even fine-tuning the colors to a way more extent than what you can do with a JPEG image. But I'm not to say that JPEGs aren't usable. Today, JPEGs have gotten a lot better, or the programs processing the JPEGs have gotten a lot better. So you can get really far with JPEGs as well. So I'm not here to hit anyone in the head that just likes to shoot JPEGs, because you can do that totally fine, no problem. So one of the major issues with JPEG recipes, I think, is that for some situation, it has a lot of contrast, but for other situations, you will lack contrast, making the image not that pleasing to look at. And this can be due to many factors in the settings. A lot of these settings in the recipes adjust the contrast, which doesn't really make it that simple. But one of the big ones is the dynamic range settings, and many recipes have set this to D400, which in my opinion really doesn't give you enough contrast for your images. So I suggest using D200 or D-Auto, even though that the recipe might say D400. And this is just to say that if you feel that you like the look of the recipe, but you think that the images comes out a bit too flat, then you could at least try to start to play with the dynamic range settings to see if this helps you. Finally, chasing the perfect recipe can really be a distracting for going out and shooting photos in the first place. It is really easy to spend more time on forums or blogs or web pages than what you do in front of the camera, searching for the right recipe, which in the end can prevent you from developing your own style and getting better as a photographer. This constant searching for new recipes can almost feel like its own hobby, but it is not the same as going out and doing actually photography. So I would just like to take a brief intermezzo talking about Pixpar. If you are a photographer or creative and want to build a professional portfolio website without learning code, Pixpar makes it super easy. I actually built my entire new site on Pixpar, and I love how clean and fast it is. You can sell prints, host galleries for clients, and even run a blog, all from one place. Try it out with the link in the description and get a 55% discount if you decide to sign up. So when do recipes actually shine? Because of course they are actually not always that bad. They are actually really fun to use, and yeah, I think that they are perfect if you do a lot of traveling or street photography, or you just don't want to be tied to a computer all day long editing photos for hours. So they're perfect for Instagram or social media, where immediacy is more powerful than taking your time getting everything perfect. And using a recipe also commits you to a certain vibe while you are out shooting, which can change the way that you see and capture the world. And probably the best part, I think, is that it forces you to compose more carefully, because if you don't want to get back to the computer and crop the image, then you actually need to think a little bit more about what you're doing when you're out shooting to make sure that you get the right composition and frame of your photo. And in the long run, I think that this will make you a better photographer. If you are a perfectionist, then this can be a bit of a challenge, but it is also a great exercise in trusting the process. So recipes can also act as a creative constraint, which can be a huge benefit, because in Lightroom you can change a lot of things and there are many presets that you can use, and the choices can be really overwhelming. And a recipe just gives you a specific look or color palette to work with. And it's like being a painter with a limited color palette, which makes you have to think a little bit more about what you are doing with the colors that you have available, if you can say so. And again, this just forces you to be more intentional with the shots that you're taking, I think. Beyond that, they are also amazing learning tools. By seeing how changes to highlights, shadows, or grain affects your photo, you can start to understand and develop your own style without needing a computer. And finally, I think that the whole community around recipes is a fantastic place. People using these recipes are mostly really nice and like to help each other, and of course share these recipes so we can all try to get these great filmic looks that we all want for our photos. Ultimately, recipes are a creative tool that saves you time and forces you to grow as a photographer. So here is my final take. Fujifilm recipes are a creative tool that are really fun to use, as long as you don't get stuck in the cycle of chasing the perfect one out there. In many cases, recipes are a starting point, not the finishing line, and it is good to know this when you start using straight out of camera Fuji JPEGs. That's why I've also been working on my own recipe packs to get the best of both worlds. My recipes are made to stand out and to be flexible, so you can use them in many cases straight out of camera. But if you, like me, also like to tweak them a little bit to make them even better, then you can also do that. And I have included my 2 Lightroom presets that I usually use with my JPEGs to make them stand out the best. This way you can use the exact seamless workflow that I rely on myself to get great photos that I can post on social media. So if you found this video helpful or interesting, please make sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that. I would really like to know what you think about the whole straight out of camera talk. Do you think it is possible to just go straight out of camera and get those amazing photos that you see online? Or do you think that they have been edited at least just a little bit in Lightroom to get that extra tweak so they stand out even more? And what about yourself? Do you just rely on the straight out of camera film recipes, or do you add a bit of editing to your photos yourself? I would really love to hear what your process is. So anyway guys, this is all for now. I will see you around in the future. Take care and
I'm the biggest in the game, I'm the one they talk about. Everybody know my name, my resume is loud.